Well, good evening to you, and I'm happy to be here with you once again on and for another episode of Advancing the Cause. You know what? Call your friend, call your neighbor, tell them Advancing the Cause is on. I must apologize for last week. These issues, we really need to have the APNU AFC back in government and quickly. Because when we had David Patterson there and Annette Ferguson, we hadn't these spates of blackouts that we're having every now and again, a power outage. Every 2 minutes, it's on and off. We having Christmas all the time. David Patterson, Honorable David Patterson, good night to you. And good night to Honorable Annette Ferguson. This nation, as a nation, we want to thank you for what you would have done for us while you served as ministers in that ministry there. Blackouts, we never experienced that. And if we did, you were notified long in advance that this was going to be happening. But you know what? Every 2 minutes, we're having a blackout. Every 2 minutes. And you know what is sad? It is sad when a person's appliances are damaged. I mean, you bought a refrigerator 5 years ago. They expect you to still have the receipt. You bought a microwave 6 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, a year ago. They still expect you to have that receipt in hand. So when you make your complaints, they're asking you for your receipt to show proof of purchase. I mean, you think I would want to leave my home to go to GPL to say to them, look, because of the frequent power outages, my fan has burnt. My microwave is damaged. My microwave oven is damaged. Something else is happening. I have to show proof of receipt or they can't accommodate me. A whole lot of nonsense. But tonight on Advancing the Cause, we are going to be looking at this evening as we reflect. We're going to be reflecting this evening, and we're reflecting whether it's one Guyana or two. Making the highlights this evening, by now we've all heard of the death of a 7-month-old toddler, where she was at a daycare, and the post-mortem is saying that she died from suffocation and I think blunt trauma to the head or something like that. But it's very sad. It's so sad, and it leaves us to ask the question: what is happening in some of our daycares? And I'm hoping that as a result of this, we are going to ensure that stringent measures are put in place so that our children are safe when they are not only at daycare centers, but when they are in school, the public schools, play schools, private schools. Our children are safe. The school compound is safe. We don't have all those rubbles that we are seeing around our school compounds now. Carpenters doing work there. Children are there at the same time while work is being done. Old board and pipes are thrown in school compounds, and children have to run around. I'm hoping that this here would allow us to know or to remind us that places where children are, it must be safe. It must be free from all sorts of unwanted obstacles. And then we saw the young man being charged for his grandmother's murder. Oh, that's another sad one. But again, how do we go forward when incidents like these happen? When we have these kinds of issues, how do we move forward as a nation? It means that something is definitely wrong somewhere, but we'll get more into that. And so as we go forward, let's ensure that we look out for each other, that we talk to each other, that we go back to basics where good morning and good afternoon and thank you and care and love and peace is a thing of the day, not of the past. And so I'm going to send out birthday greetings to all those who would have celebrated birthdays, and anniversary greetings to all those who would have celebrated anniversaries. Blessings upon blessings upon blessings to all of you. And to my Muslim brothers who are observing Ramadan at this time, I want to pray that God is going to indeed cleanse your minds and your hearts and give you a fresh and renewed beginning at the end of this month. And to those of us who are grieving at this time, we extend our heartfelt condolence to you, and we pray that God is going to give you the comfort you need at this time. But yes, we're into what we are doing, and we're saying, as we reflect, is it one Guyana or is it two Guyana? And joining me tonight is my dear buddy, Solomon Sharma. He was former regional chairman of region number 10, very, very vibrant young man who was always there for the people. And we're going to reflect on whether we are one Guyana or two Guyana. Operator? I am not sure if Brother Sharma is there, but if he's not there, we're going to talk a little bit about what is happening. Oh yes, he's right here with us. Good night to you, my brother. Let me. Is it right for me to extend Ramadan greetings to you at this time?
Certainly,
But
certainly, and good night to you and your father, your audience, MP.
And I want to thank you again for being here with us. I know we were supposed to have been here last week, but these things happen. I was just saying, we really need to have the coalition government return to power in the nick of time, because every day, every minute of the day, power outage here, power outage there. You can't really get to do anything. And it is so, so very disgusting. But Sharma, like we said last week, we're going to be reflecting on whether we are one Guyana or two Guyanas. Your opening statement.
Um, Thank you for having me on this evening, and to your audience, it's always a pleasure to be on this very apt and fitting program, Advancing the Cause. I want to thank you for the greetings also. This is indeed a blessed and holy moment, not only for our Muslim brothers and sisters. We know our Christian brothers and sisters are in the period of Lent, and they're soon to have our Easter holiday period coming up. So it is indeed a blessed moment. But as we talk on the topic of one Guyana, I want to also, like yourself, express my heartfelt sympathies and condolences today on behalf of my family and self to the parents of the toddler that passed away, and to Mr. Neptune Hercules from the community of Linden, who lost his life in a mining accident at Bosai, and the young man who died at the vulcanizing shop. I think what we found in a common thread, and as I express my sympathies to those families, would be the issue of occupational health and safety within the space of work and the space within which we provide services. And I think that is a very important area as we enter the month of April, which happens to be Occupational Health and Safety Month. I believe it becomes very important in terms of policies, the sort of oversight that we give over the workplace, and ensure that we look out for the working man and woman and their children as they too utilize these workspaces. So we can hear all the rhetoric about what we have and what is happening, but we can see before our eyes the sort of structural policies that are being put in place to ensure that we have a safe and better Guyana.
Well, thank you so much. And as we move into this, is it one Guyana or two Guyana? We have seen the trend. Every time the PPP is around, we are seeing the criminalizing of Afro-Guyanese citizens for simple things. A little protest, they're being labeled as thugs and hooligans. And then we have another protest in another area, but you don't hear those terms or those labels being attached to another group of people. And so is it really one Guyana, or we're having two Guyanas? Then we saw the bulldozing and breaking of Afro-Guyan homes in Afro-Guyanese communities. Again, one wants to ask the question, is it one Guyana or is it two Guyana? And you know, when these things are happening, we don't hear the loud cries. We don't hear the loud cries.
Mhm.
Are
Mhm.
we really one people, one nation, and one destiny? Or are we two Guyanas? Because we're talking about one Guyana. And when
Mhm.
we talk about this one Guyana, we don't see any kind of manifestation that shows us that this is indeed one Guyana. What we see are a group of people, a group of elite folks enjoying it, and the masses are there suffering. And so we just want to quickly have operator show us a couple of things. We saw just the other day the breaking down of the PNC's office in Lethem. Are we one Guyana or two? And then we had there, if that wasn't enough, I don't know, maybe Sharma, you might be able to tell us whether this here was supposed to have had some sort of reaction.
Well, this goes to the core of our values as a people. This is not just the dismantling of a building. This is a government saying that they're prepared to dismantle anything that oppose or show that they are prepared to question, to hold accountable anything that this government is doing. So here it is that every right of a citizen in Guyana allows them to have the opportunity to choose their political parties, to practice their political ideologies, to even political assembly. Those things are guaranteed fundamentally to us in our constitution. And here it is, a government, and we had legal interpretation of this matter from Comrade Wade, is instead of moving to the courts if they have grievances, and we saw the same example in the Red House case, instead of moving to the courts and have the legal and the arm of the state which represents jurisprudence deal with this matter, the government took it on its own to send in bulldozers of people, foreigners, to break and dismantle a political movement and the assembly point of that political movement. And that is how it must be put into context and nothing else. You know, I remember when the PPP had opened their office in Linden in 2014, and that was their call because we had picketed Dano Ramatar on the eve of that office opening in Linden. And the claim that was made by the PPP wasn't that we were picketing their office opening, it was that we were picketing that the fact that the agreement was not honored. And the argument used by the PPP was that we were obstructing political assembly. That is the sort of hypocrisy. And you speak of one Guyana, it means the PPP is saying that they are only the ones entitled for political assembly as they were allowed to do in Region 10. But with established buildings such as those in Lethem and Region 9, we're going to break it down to prevent political assembly. I think that in itself shows the contrast of even not only one Guyana, but how far a political organization is prepared to go to violate the rights of citizens to have their right to political assembly and the right to choose which political party they want to associate with.
So we're saying in actual fact that for some people, the Constitution stands, and for other persons, it doesn't. And then there's this group who can violate the Constitution. And it's so that's okay because that very Constitution, that very, very sacred book tells us that we have a right to be associated with any political party of our choice, any group. We are free to assemble, freedom of association, freedom of speech. But yet we are seeing here, which has become the new trend, and it's even more forceful at this time, where you cannot speak. If you feel offended about something, you cannot speak about it. And if you do speak, wait for the lashback, if we want to call it that.
Certainly.
Operator, could you while we are going to have Sharma making his comments, could you have that video queued up for us, and let's hear from another young man who's also speaking some of the language that we're speaking.
Storing infectious syringes and dirty needles in Coke bottles and plastic cans. Is this where our health sector has arrived at? As the fastest growing economy, according to the World Bank? No, man, no. It can't be. The Auditor General's report revealed that today. Looks, it's in the Kaicho News. And here it is. ExxonMobil reinvesting hundreds of US millions of our money to make more money for themselves, while Guyana borrowing loans to pay interest. You gotta love these bourgeois clowns we have here for leaders.
So, is it one Guyana as we reflect? I remember, and Sharma, you would remember, and our viewers would remember, that while the VP, now Barajagdio, when he sat as leader of the opposition, there wasn't enough water to wash away the cussing out that the coalition government got when they signed that contract there. As a matter of fact, everything was in place, which was set there by the PPP government when they were in power. And all the coalition could have done then was to sign on, and they negotiated somewhat, and they got 2% royalties. But here is it. We're seeing two things happening. The way we are storing our medical stuff, needles, syringes, all the things you can think about that Glenn Lal just mentioned. And then we're talking about the loans that we are taking, while ExxonMobil, they're shipping our monies out. We just heard yesterday and the day before that businesses and other banks are crying out that there's a shortage of US dollars, which is saying to us, the US going somewhere. It's not being spent here, it's going somewhere. So are we here in one Guyana, or are we having two Guyanas?
I think, Coretta, this is most obvious about the hypocrisy of the PDP. And, I like to say it is them treating shame with a bit of dose of shamelessness in terms of how they see the operations of the state. This is a party, as we said just now, we showed the contrast of how they operate in Letem as opposed to Red House, and allow the system to work. So you speak of the distribution of resources, and I know Glenn Lal have always been pointing out the issue of the lopsided nature of our oil contracts. This is a government in opposition that promised the world in terms of what they will do, and now we see a complete opposite. As I said, treating shame with shamelessness and the hypocrisy. But I think what it points to is a very broader approach to how you view the level of development by this government of the state of Guyana and its people. That level, and we'll take the medical aspect last. But as it relates to our acceptance of loans, we are making money. We have a natural resource fund. There is no accountability through the National Assembly to see how these monies are using, but we're taking loans. Now, remember, we're not part of the Paris Club. We're not in that preferential loan. We are now going to be taking loan at the first class rate, because Guyana is not a struggling economy. Guyana is not part of the HIPIC program that we were decades ago. Guyana is a very well-developed base on the books, finance in terms of how we have been developing country. So we are going to be taking these loans at high interest that will be paid by our generations to come. Shows the level of mismanagement. Now, besides that, as we are generating all of these monies, and you look at the health sector, you look at every sector, including education, you see that it is a lack of ability to properly plan. And that is the fundamental problem with this government in terms of how it plans in the different sector for the overall development of Guyanese. Now that we have available to us this vast amount of resource and wealth. One Guyana, Nigel Hughes pointed out very eloquently in a presentation that he made, the level of distribution and lopsidedness of that distribution in favor of one set of people over a next. And I believe it is that level of attention that the government prefers to pay, empowering, enriching, building those oligarchs, as opposed to properly planning with the resources available to ensure that Guyanese live that one people, one nation, one destiny, instead of WAN or WON, one set of people that Guyana belongs to.
You see, again, when you're not there, you know everything that you ought to do, or the persons who are there ought to do. But when you get there, you do the opposite. And so as we look on here, we are seeing here contracts being awarded. Operator, I think you have there's another slide with the contracts that are being awarded. Not that one, there's another one there. Contracts being awarded. And if you could bring that in a little for us so that our viewers would be able to see contracts being awarded. I mean, we have no difficulty with our people being able to access contracts or being awarded contracts. But we talk about Guyana as being a multiracial society, a multicultural society. But here it is. Contracts are being awarded, and see for yourself, and you tell me. You tell me when you look at the contracts that are being awarded, you tell me what you're seeing there. And so here it is again. Is this one Guyana? Is this one Guyana? Sharma, your comments.
Like I said, think about national budget, almost $1 trillion, and it will end up to $1 trillion when they certainly will go back this year for some supplemental spending. You look at where the bulk of the money is going in public works. It is in that infrastructural zone. And you look at those contracts that are being given out, not only at the level of the Ministry of Public Works, but even the Ministry of Regional Development. And you see that everything that is given out is, if you're not of a certain ethnicity, you will not get it if you are not part of a certain political party. And that is quite obvious when you look at even the very major things that are given out through the state apparatus, such as oil contracts, such as quarrying contracts. Absolutely no one that looks except like a certain race have gotten those exclusive contracts. And I believe that in itself points to not only the mentality of the government, but the intent of the government with regards to ensuring that we have a certain level of empowerment and economic advantage of a certain set of people over the other, and it's quite obvious.
So, as we reflect, is it one Guyana or is it two Guyanas? And so, operator, we would want you to bring up the pictures of Orin Boston, Quindon Bacchus, the Henry Boys, Paper Shorts, Headley. And we are going to find out whether it's one Guyana or, again, whether it's two Guyanas. Because here is it, we are seeing the ordinary man suffering again. And so this is Orin Boston from Essequibo. We are still waiting to hear when that case would be called up again. And then we have Quindon Bacchus. We're still waiting for the day in court. This was the stoning, the stoning of the Granger David G bus where school children were injured. We heard no loud cry coming from this. Is it one Guyana or two Guyanas?
One Guyana, MP McDonald, I think what is quite evident is the what you see
Yeah.
is how we treat the issue of the right to life. Listen, I am somebody who is very constitutional in how we approach looking at how the government is handling its affairs. And if you look at those affairs in terms of its management, the right to life is the most sacred right in our Constitution, the right to life. And not only Mr. Bacchus and Mr. Boston, but even in 2020, there was a gentleman named Mr. Sampat. And then we saw recently in the US State Department report in terms of the behavior of the Guyana Police Force and how it's executing its responsibilities and duties. And we see clearly, not only by Guyanese standards, but even international standards, that you don't have one Guyana in relation to how that issue of right to life is treated. It is as if the right to life of a certain segment of the population is insignificant in relation to another segment of the population. And you made the point about the David G buses and how one segment of the population viewed the attack on innocent school children as a meaningless issue, as opposed to people who are prepared to protest for the murdering of a young man such as Mr. Quindon Bacchus. That is where you see the evidence of not one Guyana, of not two or one people, one nation, one destiny, but one Guyana for one set of people. That is what it is.
You know, Sharma, as we go on, there's so much that we can talk about. We saw the gunning down of Ronald Waddle. We saw Naresh Singh being killed. Paper shorts. We had Guraj Singh, who was gunned down, shot and killed by police. And yet, all of these things are happening. But we don't hear them out. We don't hear them out cry. And with the Quindon Bacchus issue, if it weren't for much protest, then the policeman would not have been charged.
Likewise, Mr. Boston, too, over the Essequibo Coast.
We are still waiting to hear about that one. We are still waiting to hear who killed Ronald Waddle. And outside of that, we have seen quite a lot of folks being hauled before the courts. We saw the picture there of the Honorable Valde Lawrence. We saw the picture of Carol Joseph. We saw the picture there of the Chief Elections Officer, Lowenfield. And then we had this one here, wanted bulletin for Rickford Burke. Are we really enjoying a one Guyana or is it two Guyana?
I think all these things, outside of the fact that these are tactics to distract from the inability and the incompetence of this government to manage the affairs of the state properly on behalf of the people and the citizens of Guyana. These exercises that we are seeing our security forces engage in, because unfortunately, this is what they have now turned their coercive arm of the state. And we saw this in 2012 when the coercive arm of the state was used to murder innocent citizens in Linden. So you see that sort of behavior once again, where whether it's the coercive arm of the police or the army, training their attention as a security means on opposition folks, on people who may disagree or don't support the government views. While at the same time, if you ask our brothers and sisters in the bordering communities, for example, Region 1, They will tell you in the absence of that which is most important, our security issues, we have
Mm-hmm.
open borders. We have
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of things coming through, illicit country ban. We have all sorts of illegal activities
Wep-
taking
don't
place.
forget the weapons.
We have even trafficking in people, prostitution. We have all of this taking place. However, what we find is throughout the East Coast villages, throughout opposition strongholds, the in place what you call the rapid deployment group of law enforcement people waiting to act
Mm-hmm.
while we
Mm-hmm.
have our borders open and we have all of this other issue that is taking place. What
And no,
becomes the
and the
government
police not going there.
exactly what becomes the government attention? Focusing on harassing opposition and those who oppose views of the government. I think that in itself shows the level of vulnerability that the state have now exposed our nation to. And I think we must pay keen attention, whether that reflects one Guyana or one set of people to enjoy Guyana.
On our screen we saw there, but we're not going to deal with that one now. But we as we reflect, just the other day we had the arrest of an attorney because she instructed her client not to say anything.
Now, that is so
Just before you
unfortunate.
go there, and on the same hand, we saw an attorney spitting on a police officer.
Well, what I want to say to you, MP, is the matter outside of being incarcerated of young Tamika Clark, the attorney, is that the DPP a few days ago, for the charges filed against those officers for holding that attorney, have been dropped. The DPP is saying, so the counsel, Nigel Hughes, and his client, Mr. Tamika Clark, that they have no case. It is not a criminal matter to hold someone against their will, even though those three officers would have dodged receiving from the bailiff their matter to go before the court. Now the DPP is saying that the matter is no longer a criminal matter. If the attorney wants, she can take it up as a civil matter. Now, I'm bringing this to your attention to show not only the emboldening of the coercive arm and those who support the state, whether even supporters, you see people can take out guns and shoot at people, even killing them because of that thinking that they can get off. So not only in that level, but how institutionalized the situation is, that emboldened as you are, you will be protected by the institutions such as the DPP. You will be protected by the institutions such as agents within the government and those arms that represent the state. And I think that becomes a very serious issue that Guyanese must pay attention to, because today it's Tamika Clark, but tomorrow it could be you.
Well, and this is what we've been saying all the time. There's an allegation that an attorney spat on a police officer who was guarding, offering service at his home, protecting his home, and he spat on that one. We are still waiting to hear what will be the outcome of that one. But the fact is, there was no arrest, even though that attorney, as a matter of fact, the young lady who was making the allegation said she was abused, she was called a monkey. But we have not heard any cries from the elite. And so it again, it leaves one to conclude that we don't have a one Guyana.
I think more than that, on the allegation of what is something so dirty in the minds of an individual to not only say but to do. The allegation went beyond that, and we saw a video recording of a confrontation of the said individual to the lawyers in the court building.
Yep.
What it goes to show again is that mentality that says we can do this. But more than the mentality, the fact that they know it will be condoned, it will be protected, it will be given the sort of, if not support, it will be given the coverage of people believing that if I do this, there is no consequence. And I'm saying to Guyanese, when we allow that sort of mentality to linger, we had it in the early 2000s, where people feel they can kill people. It is already occurring. Not unless it come knocking at your door will you appreciate that this is something that we need to take serious action right now about.
I don't know if operator can shoot that photograph of the young lady from Mocha, Chevon, can't remember Chevon, what is her name, but this here, as we reflect on the whole episode, that all that happened in Mocha, when I think when we saw this act that was done there, it leaves one to wonder whether this government, indeed, whether they have respect for women, whether they have respect for children, whether they have respect for youths, whether they have respect for older folks, and indeed whether we are one Guyana or if we are two Guyanas. I notice we are every day you hear about one Guyana, one Guyana, one Guyana. Is it that we are saying we have erased the motto that lies there under the coat of arms that says one people, one nation, one destiny? Have we replaced it with one Guyana? And I am not sure.
The action is in the same statement, Miss Magdano. The action is indeed, this is one Guyana for one set of people. One set of people. And you can see that in the distribution of the resources. And this mentality, and we look at the issues in Mocha, we must remember that Amelia's word occurred 5 months before Mocha. We witnessed firsthand women sleeping with their belongings in the rain in Amelia's ward. We witnessed firsthand farmers getting food with crops being bulldozed in Amelia's ward. So this was just an escalation. And as I said before, and I'm saying again to communities, whether you're Sogdrum Veld, you experience it. Whether you're Mocha, you experience it. Whether you're Amelia's ward, you experience it. It is only a matter of time before it comes knocking at your door. Because as I said before, the treatment of dealing with people who are desirous of being dignified to find their own homes is not being meted out to a certain set of people. It is only being meted out to one set of people. We saw in Lima Sands when the Attorney General went up there and he got housing for people. It was done in a consultative way, it was done in an inclusionary way, and it was done in a participatory way. In the same you saw recently with those persons who were living along the Essequibo coast and even on the Demerara West Bank. All of these people were given the dignified approach of resettlement, of ensuring that they're satisfied with the settlement outside of the sort of bully tactic, intimidatory approach, and even downright illegal behavior by the state towards its citizens. That in itself, in those communities that I outlined, demonstrate that we don't have one Guyana. We have one Guyana for one set of people, according to this government. However, it is important that every Guyanese remember our motto, that this is for one people, one nation, that we hope to build with one destiny to ensure that we all prosper from the patrimony of this beautiful country.
You know, as we reflect on one Guyana, we saw just the other day Guyana attaining its 53rd birth anniversary as a republic. during that whole celebration or leading up to that, we had the birth 100th birthday of birth anniversary, as a matter of fact, of Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham. And we had there, I'm not sure if the operator has got this picture. I want him to put up a picture for us there, a particular picture from Mocha. I'm not sure if he has it there. But as we go on, I guess he's going to bring it up. We saw all of these activities happening there. And the 53rd Republic anniversary, that was a confusion by itself, because we saw in certain regions, there was smooth flow of the activities. In other regions, especially regions that were controlled by or won by the APNU AFC, we had lots and lots of confusion in those regions. We saw the coalition party, or the PNC party, as a matter of fact, observing the 100th birthday of its founder leader, LFS Burnham. And there was there was an exhibition. Approaches were made to the Ministry of Education seeking to have students and pupils released to attend that exhibition. That was denied. But yet we saw, for the birth anniversary of another great leader, Cheddi Jagan, of this country, Cheddi Jagan, who's another leader, another fantastic leader, another powerful leader in this country. We saw schools such as Queen's College being allowed, given time off to listen to a program that was conducted, to be part, the students to be part of a program that was conducted. And here is it, we're talking here about One Guyana. You're denying the approval to observe, to have students view an exhibition, but yet you're approving, on the other hand, for students to be part of another forum in observance of another great leader of this country. Can we safely say that we are one Guyana? Well, when you want to deny this nation the opportunity to observe, to reflect, and to gain knowledge on what LFS Burnham did for this country. But then you are, on the other hand, you're approving for students to be part of an observance that remembers Cheddi Jagan.
MP, in the words of one of my favorite reggae singers, Sizzler, can't keep a good man down. That is every intention you see of this government. Can't keep a good man down. The ideals of Forbes Burnham will never die as long as there is a nation called Guyana. Because he brought us that independence. 4 years after, brought us to the state of a republican, that we as a republic had that right of self-determination from the point of those first ancestors fighting to ensure we have self-determination. We broke that with Forbes Burnham quest to ensure that by 1970, we became a republic. You have Caribbean states now who are seeking to have their republican status. We were the first to have done that. You have the issue of recognition that Burnham brought by just making us a republican, as a republic state in terms of world recognition. We championed the world because of the status of Forbes Burnham. You now have persons who demonized Forbes Burnham to preaching not only self-determination, but self-reliance. Today, at the UNCAP program over the last weekend, now celebrating rice flour. How can you deny and keep a good man down? You imagine if 30, 40 years ago, a rice producing nation like Guyana was making byproducts of what we're producing how advanced, how far, how much of a market. Just the same way we were able to do with the involvement of Forbes Burnham, self-reliance of saltfish. Now we're exporting that. We not only have a market, we are making billions on the fishing industry from that. You imagine because of self-reliance, we don't have to import grapes to put in our black cake. We are now putting our carambola fruits that we are making. We now have that market. So could you imagine how far our rice flour would have been today if those who demonized Burnham and made it a political and racial tool that he was using it to go after a group of people who today are preaching that sort of divisiveness within our nation, how far we could have advanced to ensure that we use our local produce to you cannot 100 years of existence of the individual in name. We are still speaking of him at this present moment. It in itself demonstrates just what Burnham did for Guyana. And to deny him as first executive president, to deny him who brought home our independence and our republic, and to deny him who made Guyana advance. There has been no, for example, in Region 10, there have been no other transformational program except those laid down by Forbes Burnham. Whether you call it the Linden Suicide Highway, whether you call it the Upper Berbice agriculture program that you see the big Saya excitement is about now, those things were there from Forbes Burnham. All those years on, we are now looking to deal with a new bridge. The legacy of Burnham still remains. So tell school children to tell the young people where in any other nation you see all the presidents of America being celebrated. They all have presidential libraries. In Guyana, we are going to say to young people not to remember. You must forget. As if we are so backwards and ignorant that is what we do. That is what the Taliban did. That is what extremist people do. They burn books and deny people the right to education. That is the mentality that we are dealing with right now, MP.
You know, Sharma, as we talk about Chedi Jagan, and as we talk about the contributions that were made about by Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, and seeing the way that the PPP have been demonizing him, and that is LFS Burnham, it leaves one to wonder whether there is anything good when it comes to somebody who, when, as long as you oppose the PPP, if there is anything good in you. We have seen the demonizing of Rickford Burke. We have seen the demonizing of so many of our other leaders. Presently, we have the opposition leader, and we're seeing how they are using every dot within them to demonize him. We're seeing how they're using every dot within them to demonize former Prime Minister, Mayor of Georgetown, Mayor, Minister of Sports, Minister of Health, Comrade Hamilton Green. Everybody within the PNC, the PPP seeks to demonize. As long as you oppose their ideology, they seek to demonize you. But when we look at the actual fact, the demons are seeking to demonize people who would have contributed to this country. And you know what? I like the way Glenn Lal would put it over quite a lot of times. The jokers that we have as leaders and all that they're doing. And we saw the just recently at Babu John, we saw the vice president. Well, I always call him the first vice president because he is first. Nobody can make any decision unless he decides that this must happen. Nobody else can do that. And we saw him in his full glory at Babu John. We saw him there, and we heard all the things, and you know, this is all that he can do. use the opportunity every time they have to remember the birth anniversary or the death anniversary of Chedi Jagan and Janet Jagan. They use that forum to unleash their venom on other people. But you know what? Many of our citizens are seeing the light.
Mhm.
And so they are no longer mentally lazy. They are finding out for themselves. And you know what? We are happy. I am happy. And I'm sure the rest of this nation, even those who want to stifle their conscience, they're happy that we are seeing right there in Berbice in Region 6. And you know, I want to ask whether Barajak doing got no shame that in Region 6, there is this organization, this factory where they're doling out rice flour bread and rice flour pastries. And this is what they said many years ago, that the PNC want to make you get white mouth. They want you to be malnourished. They can kill you with white flour, with rice flour. But here it is, we are seeing rice flour blooming. I guess LFS Burnham is probably smiling in his grave. And he is
Yeah,
saying,
she's
look,
smiling.
look, look at them. Look at them. You know, when we talk about LFS Burnham, we're talking about a man who served as the first mayor for Georgetown. You know, we're talking about this man who was the architect behind the Kanji Bridge. We're talking about a man who was the architect behind the road being built from Corriverton to Parika for the Linden Soesdijk Highway. And yet you seek to demonize this man. We're talking about a man here who was the architect behind all of those housing schemes that we have there, except for these new ones that we have that are falling apart. All the housing schemes in Linden, the housing schemes in Georgetown, Roxon, Burnham, North Rumvelt, South Rumvelt Gardens, South Rumvelt Park, Tocqueville, the Stevedore housing scheme, East the Penitence, Northeast the Penitence, West on the west coast of Berbice, East Berbice Quarantine, everywhere you can think about. Linden, Forbes, Sampson, Burnham ensured that the small man was a real man. He ensured that what we are hearing today about planting and planting and planting, he was the man who said, produce or perish. Put a seed down there. And you know, when those things were happening, we said, the PDT said then that Burnham wanted to enslave people. But you know what? We are seeing the enslavement coming in a modernized fashion now, where we are bringing black belly sheep from Barbados. We loosen loads and loads and loads of monies to do pig farming, to rear tilapias, to do this, to do that, to do the other. I'm sure, Sharma, you've got your bit to say on this man called LFS Burnham. Of course, we cannot deny the fact that Chedi Jagan and LFS Burnham, they walked together to ensure that we are where we are today in terms of being independent and in terms of being a republic.
I think when you recognize, even as the PPP, especially those who are going out to educate and structurally in the ideological sense to ensure that there is no remembrance of this distinguished son of the soil, Forbes Burnham. It is so bitter. It is so immature. And when you hear the VPs talk about there is lack of trust for executive power sharing, you know where that lack of trust is coming from, because of that mentality and thinking that you started this conversation and even ended this conversation with words of appreciation even for Dr. Jagan. And those should not be escaped. Though you may have political, ideological different views, he made contributions. You would never hear anyone in that thinking say something pleasant about Forbes Burnham. And this is outside we must remember these gentlemen were union leaders before political leaders,
Before,
who
you
took
know,
us to the point of ensuring the trade union were the first line to fight the anti-colonial struggles. And even to that extent, recognition must be given, not only to Forbes Barnum, but Dr. Jagon, to Critchlow, and so many others before them. So to not even give that consideration in that context shows this sort of bitterness and envy towards the fact that not only Forbes Barnum brought us as a nation to independence and republic, but the sort of impressions that left behind are undeniable, not only domestically, but international as it relates to our standing in the world when Barnum was president. So I think you cannot escape when you see the behavior to then equate it to a level of bitterness and envy in what Barnum was able to do. Bottom line, that is what is driving the behavior of the people.
you know, Sharma, the thing is, as we reflect, as our topic says, as we reflect, are we one Guyana or two Guyanas? And this brings me to again to reflect on Babu John again, where the installed president there in his address, he said he's going to wipe out racism. Well, I am so sorry for some of the people around him, because he can wipe all of them out. And I want to say to him tonight, viewers, listen to me. And if he doesn't hear, you tell him. If he wants us to take him seriously, if he wants us to take him seriously when he says that he's going to wipe out racism, then he got to start with some of these sectors. He got to start with one, the Ministry of Education. If you're talking about wiping out racism, start with the Ministry of Education if you want us to take you seriously. Because if you look at every or almost every component within that region, that ministry, sorry, you're going to see who are the persons heading there. So again, are we one Guyana or two Guyana? If we look at the composition of the Teaching Service Commission, are we one Guyana or two Guyanas? When we look again at contracts that are being awarded, so Mr. Irfan Ali, if you want the people of this country to take you seriously, when you talk about wiping out racism, make the changes and let's see. If you want us to take you seriously, take some actions with what is happening at forestry. If you want us to take you seriously, offer the people, talk to the people in Mocha, renegotiate with them so that they can have a proper negotiation package, a proper package for their homes that you destroyed in Mocha. If you want us to take you seriously, the women in Wisma whose homes were broken down, those single mothers, if you want us to take you seriously, reach out to those single mothers. If you want us to take you seriously, Mr. Irfan Ali, if you really want us to take you seriously, don't tell the teachers of this country or ask the head teachers in this country to submit to you through the Ministry of Education the ethnic makeup of their staff. If you want us to take you seriously, don't tell them that, because your ethnicity has nothing to do with you being qualified and you being a teacher. So are we talking here about one Guyana? What does the makeup of the staff got to do with delivering education? So don't talk about wiping out racism because you're not serious about it. You're talking because a script was given to you. If you want people to take you seriously, allow the opposition members of parliament to be granted time on NCN. Give them airtime on NCN if you want us to take you seriously. If you're talking about wiping out racism, allow Kwame McCoy to give the instructions to the folks there at NCN to have the members of parliament, their presentations being viewed live across this country. If you're talking about wiping out racism and you're talking about one Guyana, don't talk one Guyana when you know fully well to yourself that there are two Guyanas. Sharma, your take.
I think you made that point very, very well, MP, of the level of seriousness that goes into the behavior in terms of the rhetoric, to match the rhetoric that is being spoken about one Guyana. And you see these in facades of behavior and action in, for example, Men on a Mission. There is no benevolence in things like that. $500 million were given to that, which comes directly through the management of the office of the president. So that in itself is just a financial tool. There's no benevolence. And I think there is where Guyanese must say, okay, there is no benevolence, then how come that person and not me receiving some of what is really in the budget for every Guyanese to benefit from? So not only the seriousness is not paid to those issues that you mentioned, but wherever you see an attempt to demonstrate any level of benevolence, what is really being pushed forward is an agenda that represents and reflects the government's interests. So people will, and I want that to be very clear, because we are falling in what I've always referred to as the looking fit culture, correct, MP, where people believe that in the quest to looking for whatever they should be entitled to, whether that is the grants, whether that is your oil money or your money or your patrimony, in looking for it, we many times miss that what we are getting is nothing in exchange for what we are giving up as a people. And as you said, the serious approach to dealing with matters are not being matched with those which you see as efforts to say serious approach to deal with those matters. People are crying, cost of living is going up every single day. How do you match that with seriousness? You're not providing public servants with a livable wage. How are you providing that with seriousness? You're not ensuring that the distribution of resources happens in an equal and equitable manner, that every single Guyanese can enjoy what is coming out as theirs in terms of their share. You're only ensuring that you build a certain class, that you give to only a certain race and only certain people who are your supporters. And I think as Guyanese, here is where we must pay keen attention, because by the time you accept those very insignificant benevolence, as they want to put it, you'll find yourselves and family far behind, trying to catch up as the system moves way ahead in terms of the living and lifestyle. And many Guyanese are feeling that pinch at the moment. Many people are going through that sort of struggle to provide daily for their families. And I'll give you an example, MP. So we saw this given their concern for education in Amelia's ward. So we give our friends a $300 million school. That over half of the amount is spent and not even quarter of the amount of work is done. And it's way behind schedule. Now, let me say this. That is one way of looking at it. But the most fundamental way to see it is when we see a young woman named Desiree from the area, or a young woman by the name of Orlita from the area, who now have to send 3-4 children miles down at Caracara or farther in Amelia's ward, and every week have to spend $9,000 and $6,000 on transportation to get their children to school. We become more aware of now the sort of treatment when somebody is going to say to you, you have to decide whether to send your children to school or to provide them with a meal when the morning come. But in the same time, we're saying we're providing schools at 300 million that our friends and supporters are the sole beneficiary from, while people suffer.
And Sharma, you know, while that is not enough, the teachers are suffering. And I don't want to rehash what we saw happening last week, but the teachers are suffering. And if the president is saying that he's going to wipe out racism and he wants to have one Guyana where people can live in comfort, in unity, and with love, then pay the teachers, engage the teachers union. And I'm happy when you spoke about Chetty Jagan and LFS Burnham being union leaders, the first union leaders. In our society today, in the two Guyanas that we have, one set of trade union leaders are being placed on the mountaintop, while another set are being criminalized. You know, every minute of the day you hear Barra Jagdeo or Friend Ali or some one of them could belittle Lincoln Lewis and Coretta McDonald and Norris Witter and some of the other trade union leaders. But leaders such as C. Paul Narayan and so many others, Carville Duncan and the whole works of them, you don't hear them you don't hear any belittling. Funding, subventions are being given to the school, a school that that GAU has there, but no subvention for the Critchlow Labour College. You know, and we're talking one Guyana. Is this, as we reflect, is this one Guyana or two Guyana? My viewers, I want to thank you so much for being here with us. I know when we start getting into this, the time just loses itself. And there's so much that we want to tell you, but we're going to be here again to tell you more of this next week. As we reflect, is it one Guyana or two Guyanas? Operator, could you play that last video for us? Not this one, the other one. Could you play that video for us? I think it's with Glenn Lal. Could you play that one for us as we go out of the show? Do take care of yourselves. Remember, COVID is still alive and well, so you need to be careful. Be mindful of where you send your children. Be mindful of what you yourself do. And remember, freedom of speech is here to stay, and no government will take that away from you. I think the operator is trying to get that. And so while he's trying to get that,
Jagdeo blames everybody he can for all his evil actions. We carried a story in the Kaicho News saying, government playing hot potatoes with Exxon's audits. Jagdeo, the man who President Ali put in charge to manage the oil sector, saying, ask Vic. And when you ask Vic, Vic says, ask Jagdeo. That's the blame game Jagdeo has been playing in this country with our assets, with our future, with your future ever since. When he is cornered and don't want to answer a question that will reveal his true identity or where he stands on certain issues, he sends you to his underlings, the ministers and other government officials, so that they can look bad in the eyes of the public, and he comes out smelling like a fresh rose. That's the man. When the Kaicho News was banging on him about those US billion-dollar audits, the audit reports on the oil projects, and know his words gonna find himself in trouble or reveal who he really is, he said, ask Vikram Bharat. And when the reporter asked Vikram Bharat, Vikram said, ask VP. Jagdeo has always been like that since he was president. He always shifting his evil, dirty ways, so that the shame falls on them poor government workers and
have it. There you have it. The man who always throws the blame on somebody else. And so he doesn't take blame for anybody else. He wants to come out every time. He wants to come out as fresh as a rose. And so we are here again with you. My brother Sharma, I want to thank you for being here with us and advancing the cause. And so viewers, it's always a pleasure to be here with you. But remember, the man who always throws the blame around, Vice President Barra Jagdeo, very liar and deceitful man. Be mindful of him. The wolf on the sheep clothing. See you next week for more on advancing the cause. Take care and bye-bye.